On February 7th, 2024, in Owasso, Oklahoma, a suburb of Tulsa little more than 10 minutes from the metropolitan area, Nex Benedict was beaten in a restroom at their high school by 3 other students. No ambulance was called by school officials, and Nex wasn't taken for further medical examination or treatment until their family arrived. On February 8th, Nex collapsed and was taken back to the hospital where they would die. None of the 3 of us knew Nex personally, not in passing, not in person or virtually, and certainly not to any degree that we could hope to understand the pain of their friends and family at this time. No, we didn't know Nex, but their story has still resonated with us because in Nex we can see the vulnerability of our community and the outcomes of hate in the United States. In Nex we see our friends, our loved ones, our chosen families, our hopes, our dreams, ourselves, and sadly, we see our fears. We see the vitriol of politicians like Ryan Walters and Kevin Stitt, of mass media terrorists like Shia Rashik, and of would-be autocrats like Donald Trump. We see all of this, and it is heartbreaking and infuriating. Nex's mother noted that their bullying truly began after Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt passed a bill that would ban K through 12 students from using the restroom of their gender that they identify with. Oklahoma has been a largely conservative state for some time now, with Christianity being the major foundation of anti-LGBTQ sentiments and discrimination in both our government and our neighborhoods. Nexus is the second recorded violence-related death in the U.S. against the trans and gender-expansive community. And although local authorities appear to want the story to gain as little attention as possible, it continues to spread both inside and outside of the community. So this week, listener, we will deviate from our typical light and comedic tone that you've grown used to in order to talk not only about Nex and their untimely death, but also about the threats to our community that continue to grow and be fueled by seemingly ever-increasing anti-LGBTQ sentiment in the U.S. Thank you for your understanding. Welcome back, listener, to Season 4, Episode 8 of Beards and Sundries. This is Anthony, and I am here with your other hosts, Jay and Joe.
Hello.
And hi.
So, this week, obviously, since you guys heard the intro, if you've made it this far, you certainly have listened to the intro. Oklahoma... It was not this week, obviously, it was several weeks ago, but we've experienced something that is, I hate to say it, not necessarily unprecedented for us, but certainly painful for the LGBTQ community, something that's hit us very hard, and something that we feel the need to talk about more in depth than just a soundbite or a blurb. So, if you guys are still here, thank you for being here with us this week. We really appreciate you. We love you very much. And just as a warning, we're going to be talking about some very heavy subjects. We're going to be talking about bullying. We're going to be talking about suicide and suicidal ideations. We're going to be talking about, the overwhelming fear of threats to our community at large, and just generally going to have a heavy weight over this episode. So if you are feeling any sort of triggers, if you're not feeling up to it, now's the time to go ahead and stop, take a step back, come back to this episode when you're ready for it. Otherwise, continue on with us, listen, chime in, call in, give us your feedback. We want to hear from you about this episode because at the end of the day, the 3 of us only have our limited perspectives to operate under. So the more feedback we can get about the subjects that we're going to talk about here today, the better.
We also want to let you know that, just as a quick disclaimer, we are recording this episode at 8:24 p.m. on February 21st, 2024. So we are going off of the stories and reports that we have to this point. So if things have come to light after this time period, then we will certainly update our socials. We'll maybe even edit this episode before it comes out if you're listening to it now on Sunday. So we want to offer our perspectives and what we think, because we think that we owe that to all of you because we have this platform to give it from.
I mean, at the end of the day, we're not We're not a news outlet. We don't specialize in journalism. That's not what we're here for. We are a we're a commentary podcast at best.
Yeah.
And we are 3 gay men with beards, as you all know, and 2 of us live in the same household, which is a 15-minute drive away from Owasso High School, which is where this took place, which is why it has hit us so close to home, literally and figuratively. So that's why we're devoting this episode toward it.
But I kid you not, I have seen more news in Oklahoma City regarding the superintendent or principal that was performing drag outside of school, and how that school got a bomb threat and how eventually he stepped down. That has been on the news more than I've seen any of this in Oklahoma. I found this out through Freedom Oklahoma's post that I saw and Anthony sent me. And that is how we started spreading it. And then since then, we've seen it blow up. And as I look up Nex Benedict on Google in general, I understand it's blown up recently. I cannot find an article that's from anywhere near February 7th.
No. Major news outlets started to report on it mostly today, which, again, this is February 21st. This happened 14 days ago.
To my understanding, it's been because of people sharing it so much and bringing it to light, because I can't speak for anyone and how they report their news, but from what I've seen in the past, a lot of news outlets or authoritative figures will tell you to just wait it out and wait for the facts to come to light. Well, this seems to be a case of wait for it to blow over. And I don't want it to blow over, because then it will become nothing else and a small blurb on the map, and it will become just another statistic.
And for years, that was me. We need to wait things out. We need to find out the real results before we say anything. And then all of a sudden you forget about it. And I caught myself, actually today, I saw a social media post from someone from Oklahoma that was just like, listen, we don't know all the facts. We should calm down, not get overexcited about this, and wait for all that to come out. They're still working on an autopsy. And for a brief moment, I was like, that's a really good point. And then I stopped and I went, no, it is not a really good point. That is how this blows over. That is how this continues. That is how all of this absolutely horrific behavior happens towards our community. And it's so obnoxious to watch it repeat itself over and over and over again. And I don't even suffer that kind of stuff. I don't know how I haven't, but I've watched all these kids that go through this, and it hurts a lot, because it kind of reminds you of how vulnerable we were at that age.
I also don't think that I need an autopsy report to come out to tell me that someone suffered cerebral hemorrhaging from having their head beat against a tile floor. I just don't think I need to hear official results of that.
Well, and regardless of what that is, I mean, even at the end of the day, even if this is just an incidence of bullying because this person could not use the restroom that they most identified with, that's still hugely problematic. If you want my personal opinion, again, this is not news related. This is not fact based. I absolutely agree with you, Joe. I think that 100%, if you were looking at a timeline of things, if you have this report of Nex and their friend having their head beaten against the wall multiple times, and then they die the next day, I don't know. It just feels so completely absurd to say that those two things are unrelated.
And as of today, which is, again, Wednesday, February 21st, they did release results of the preliminary autopsy, and they're still waiting on toxicology and all these other things, but they said that it was not a result of trauma. That's just what they keep repeating. And I'm like,
So this also harkens back to, and I hate to compare it to this, but in Oklahoma, the way things work here, reporting on deaths during COVID, where you could say something is unrelated, The person did have COVID, but they died of asthmatic issues.
Diabetic issues. Something.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, well, maybe they did have those issues, but was it exacerbated by this? Would they have died if they did not have that happen to them?
Yeah. Well, and that was kind of the conservatives' argument, is how many people were dying of COVID that actually had other problems. And I said, okay, yeah, but these people were not immediately going to die from that issue. It was exacerbated by COVID, which is why it's considered COVID death. That's what we always lean on in scenarios like this. We always jump on this wagon of, it can't be that, because we're not bigots. We're not mean people. I mean, as much as they tell themselves that, they feel convinced, and it's just constant gaslighting. We gaslight our own thoughts, so that way we feel good about ourselves. And I'm like, if you stop for just a moment and really self-evaluate, you're shocked at how disappointed you can be in yourself and how much you want to correct it. Been there, done that, still doing that.
Well, and that is so... It is an issue in our state because there are all of these rural places. And when we say rural, listener, we mean just outside of maybe Tulsa and Oklahoma City. Because even when you get to the metro areas where you have these larger communities like Owasso or Broken Arrow, they are so heavily conservative that you still run into these like overwhelming cultural issues.
Yeah.
There was a town in Oklahoma within the last few years that the local sheriff, was caught by a reporter who was plotting to kill that same reporter. And they still had to undergo like a whole investigation about it. And they were like, well, we're not sure if they really meant it and blah, 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 even though they had a whole recorded conversation between that sheriff and somebody else about how they were going to go about it. And that's the kind of corruption that you deal with in these societies who just want to disbelieve that anything could be wrong with themselves.
Well, what was that guy's name that was in our government? Ralph Shorty or something like that? He was creating over 10 years ago, I think, all of these anti-gay laws. And then he was caught in a hotel room with a minor male and marijuana.
Yep.
And so I'm like, everything that you are against and that you're fighting against, you're still participating in. And on top of being with a minor,
it's wild. Like, did you just think you weren't going to get caught ever?
Well, and I think most of these people have that severe case of cognitive dissonance that most Americans suffer from when they're in these types of situations. It happens within the LGBTQ community as well, where you have people who identify as gay who think that being trans is some kind of like mental health issue. And that blows my mind because I'm just like, did you not experience your own upbringing? Did you not have to deal with all of that? I don't know if maybe you do need to deal with some sort of severely overwhelming adversity growing up, i.e., I don't know, horrible religious beliefs, to make you understand how stupid you sound when you bring things up like that. But that's the type of environment that these mentalities create, and they don't start with kids. They do not start with children. They don't start in school. They start with parents, and that bleeds into the school.
Learned behavior.
And that's where these things come from. That's how we get situations like Nex.
And that's why so many of these teachers are frustrated, is because they can't teach. Because what they do is dictated by the parents, and then all the school systems cave to all these parents' demands or the superintendent's demands, and so the teachers can't teach. I just listened to an episode of one of my favorite podcasts lately called I've Had It. And they had on Ginger Minge, who is a drag queen who was on RuPaul's Drag Race. And Ginger talked about how their sister is a special education teacher in Florida. And at the beginning of this past year, she was told that she had to submit a list of all of her books in her collection. Not the books that she had at school, every single book in her private collection at home, and then she was to submit that list to the district, and then they told her which ones she could and could not keep in her home and possession. And she didn't do it. She, to my knowledge, she resigned because of it.
Well, good God. That's...
I mean, taking your personal books, that's insane. That's Nazism.
Also, talk about a conservative party, which obviously leans on the right side, talking about small government until they want to control something.
And I think it is important to note that at some point in time, for some good amount of time, crying Nazi was sort of like crying wolf.
Yeah.
But when it comes to banning personal book collections,
yeah,
that's not crying wolf. At this point, we are talking about actual factual fascism and Nazism. We're not even making collusional or like delusional connections between the two. This is just direct connections. Like, this is it.
So in that same episode, they also talked about how she was no longer allowed to teach the kids about Rosa Parks because it would make a white child uncomfortable, potentially. So the biggest problem with that is history is not supposed to be comfortable. History is history. You can't go back and make it comfortable for everyone to learn about. It's supposed to be uncomfortable so that you learn from history and you learn not to repeat it. So when you don't teach history and you don't teach these kids about what happened in the past, history is doomed to repeat itself. We all know the saying. But when you take out those materials that teachers are supposed to teach the students about and they don't learn about it, then they're destined to grow up and potentially follow that same path, and then we're just going to keep on repeating this horrible cycle over and over again.
Yeah. Well, and just think of the psychology behind this. You treat things negatively that you're unsure of and that scare you. That is a very common trait of being fearful of something. So what happens is conservatives have no interest in taking interest, basically, in anybody that doesn't act or behave or think like them. So these people that they don't understand why they are homosexual, why they are trans, why anything, why they don't feel and think exactly like them, it makes them scared. So then they start to force these laws. They start to force you to transition to how they think you should be because their thoughts are the morally correct ones. That is how they feel. And they think if everyone would just work the way they think they should, the world would be a better place. And I'm like, how do you feel that everyone should think only like you?
And that is what privilege is. That is
Yes.
them trying to curate reality to match what they want it to look like when they step outside their doors, because they forget that freedom and privilege are two very, very separate things. Because for the gay kid or the trans kid or the non-binary kid who has to go to school and deal with all this that's been curated for straight cisgendered children,
Yeah.
their experience is horrible. Because they have to navigate these things that don't make sense to them or that just tell them that they are wrong, that their existence itself is incorrect. Whether morally or just genetically or generally, that's what they're learning about. So they have to deal with not only growing up and all that bullshit that you have to deal with when you become a teenager, but also they have to deal with understanding how their own personal identities can coexist with what they're being taught by the people who are supposed to be helping guide them through life. And you can't. At some point, you have to come to this mental reckoning with yourself where you have to pick. And that's what leads to people wanting to commit suicide. That's what leads to self-harm. That's what leads to these people being so disenfranchised with the nation, because 33% of people aren't comfortable walking outside and seeing a gay person existing as a gay person.
I don't understand society.
Yeah, Lord.
It's just, it's exhausting that, honestly, it's exhausting that we went so far forward in the past 10 years. I've seen this massive transition. Well, actually, I'd say 15 now. I've seen this massive transition of, and then suddenly, it's We're getting gay marriage approved. We're getting all this stuff. And
2015,
then
baby.
It all accelerated so quickly, and everything was going great.
Yes. And then we get this dickwad of a senseless, lack of intelligent human being in the White House that exasperates this complete insane rhetoric. And that's basically given the stupidest wheel that's useless in any piece of mechanical equipment the loudest, most obnoxious noise. And that's what he's done. He's just amplified it for no reason. And because of all of this hardcore gerrymandering that Republicans have to do apparently to win, that's how they're able to keep control and create these weird laws still. And it's just
only reason they've won any sort of election in so many states. And on top of that, the Electoral College is the only reason we've had Republican presidents since the year 2000.
Yeah.
For almost 3 decades, we would have had Democratic presidents if it weren't for the Electoral College, because the majority of people who voted for Democratic candidates. And that's how it works across the board. We just have to deal with a small subset of people who are overwhelmingly taking over minority rights.
Yeah.
From the very second that I heard about Donald Trump running and even considering going into the race, the main thing I heard about him was he speaks his mind. He says what he's thinking. He always speaks what's on his mind. So then everyone who had been in the shadows for so long and had even maybe been making strides, on their own personal journey, then thought, hey, I can speak whatever's on my mind too. And that became very dangerous, especially for those keyboard warriors who could hide behind the screen. Yeah. So that's when I think it all took a turn downhill, was because now everyone had a free pass to say and do whatever they wanted, because that's what their president was doing, and he was someone to look up to. And that's when everything started to take a nosedive downward. We started seeing things getting repealed, things getting taken away. All of this progress that we were making forward started to dip down and really hit a wall.
I mean, overturning of Roe v. Wade. That's decades.
Insane.
Precedents. That's women, just generally women. Over half the population had rights taken away from them.
Within a 10-year span, we had marriage equality become passed and Roe v. Wade become repealed. And that is wild to me. I can't believe it was ever even on the table to be repealed.
Less than a 10-year span. That's maybe 4 years between the two?
Something like that. Yeah.
The most interesting part, you said precedent, which reminded me of this. The most interesting part is, now that Trump's been going through all of this legal trauma and this witch hunt stuff, so many people on that side of the party have been like, this is unprecedented. This is insane. The country's going crazy. And I said, you're saying unprecedented, this shouldn't be happening. And you're defending yourself. And I'm like, I'm saying unprecedented as in the fact that we've never had anybody in politics this fucking insane that has created this scenario. And I used to think Nixon was insane. I used to think many other presidents before him were insane. Now it's weird how they look completely normal, because this man has just built this complete chaotic ball of bullshit, and everyone latches onto it.
Do you guys remember in the 1990s when Bill Clinton got a blowjob in the Oval Office and everyone in the world wanted him to become impeached? And then Donald Trump had an affair with Stormy Daniels and people were putting him on a pedestal.
So that was the whole thing, was that they were impeaching Bill Clinton for perjury. However, to be fair, Donald Trump incited insurrection. So...
Not according to him and his legal team.
Well, he just lies, constantly. The man's just pathological.
It depends on the moment. He will say the word insurrection, and then he will suddenly be like, but it's Nancy Pelosi's insurrection. And if he says the wrong word, he'll stir it to be a Democrat that caused it. or he'll just get the wrong Democrat's name. But yeah, it baffles me how anyone believes that, because if you just listen to what's going on, it's complete off the top of the head chaotic bullshit being talked about all the time. That's it. Just anything.
And here's like the mind-blowing thing to me is that I feel like in our age, in our time, where we're at currently, gay rights, lesbian rights, bisexuality, these things are sort of still kind of nestling themselves into society. They're becoming more commonplace to the point that us people, can, can start being involved in different segments of society that we didn't used to be in. Like log cabin Republicans were so fringe, but now like you see gay Republicans just existing. We have sort of ingrained ourselves in society in a way that we're comfortable, right? But trans issues and gender issues are just, it's the fight of our time for our community. And
yeah,
I think that's one of the reasons we wanted to talk more about this tonight, was because as gay cisgendered men, we have a small platform, but we have a platform. And it's our duty to help protect the community and to give a voice to those who don't have a voice, and to spend time talking about these issues, because this is a fight that we have been fighting for ourselves, that we need to help others fight, because there's not enough of us to do it alone.
Well, and then younger Joe was always on this mindset of, oh my gosh, it's everyone who's homosexual against the world. And then this big uptick of support in the 2010s and during the Obama administration, and then marriage equality being passed, and then that was suddenly, the road had been laid, everything was great, we had a victory. I never imagined that it would become such a more pressing issue of gender. Everyone freaks out and loses their mind when the issue of gender is on the table, and I just can't wrap my mind around why it is so difficult for someone to comprehend someone identifying as a gender that they identify as. Why is that such a hard concept to wrap your fucking mind around?
It's purely the fear of you possibly having to change your mindset to understand that the world isn't black and white anymore. You have to start to acknowledge that there are gray areas that you can't figure out. But instead of being like, I'm going to embrace these gray areas and go along with it, you go, no, I'm going to keep things the way I remember it. I'm going to write my checks. I'm going to pay in cash. I'm going to do all this old bullshit because I won't adapt to change. And you have to deal with my decisions.
And that's just where you have to keep teaching history as the way it has always been taught, because if no one ever learns anything new, they become afraid of learning anything new. And if they become afraid of learning new things, that's where that black and white thinking stays in place, and they refuse, and refusing to learn turns into fear, and fear turns into bullying, and that's how you come to this situation that has happened now.
And you get a large crowd of people lashing out because they feel like they are being attacked, because they're being told that the way they talk and think isn't moral anymore, and they hate that.
And oh my God, it just makes me so fucking pissed to hear people who are so-called Christians talk about themselves being marginalized because they might have to accept the fact that other fucking people exist outside of their religious beliefs. Holy goddamn motherfucking shit. If you wanted to go and live in a religious first, if you want to live in a theocracy, go to Iran. They have theocracy there. So go for it. Like, go live on your fucking island where you can say that, you know, women have to make your sandwiches and birth your babies. Go somewhere fucking else aside from the place that is billed as the land of the free. Because land of the free doesn't need to have an asterisk over it. The land of the free, as long as you're fucking comfortable walking outside.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
As long as you feel good with everyone around you. As long as you feel like your thinking is the dominant thinking in every way.
So that's just it. America is this country where freedom, the word freedom, has the biggest asterisk in the entire world. It's freedom as long as you fit into what we want.
It's also, we have freedoms. Yes, we are not China. We're not Russia, where we have these extraordinary dictators that take over things. But there's still a lot of restrictions with this freedom. And everything that's created in our restrictions is to make sure that what you are doing is not impeding on someone else's life.
Well, and that's where you run into these issues of privilege versus rights, because people will tell you you should just be thankful you have XYZ thing. I will never forget in 2015 when marriage equality passed that I had a person who was a so-called friend of mine who said the words, "I'm glad that you guys can get married. I just wish you'd be more grateful about it."
What?
Which, what the fuck? I don't have to be fucking grateful. That's equal goddamn rights. Like, fuck you. You won't know what grateful is until you've had to actually fight for something. Go fuck yourself.
You're telling me that I have to be grateful that you finally let down this wall just enough to give us a hint of a right, and I'm supposed to praise you?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Bull fucking shit. I'm done with that shit. I'm not here to people please you.
You gotta suck their cock.
You shouldn't even have a decision in my goddamn life.
Exactly. That's what they don't get. Like, I just...
You can literally hate it all you want. You could be like, I hate that this guy has sex with other men. You can hate it. Hate it internally. I hate a lot of things people do.
Not mine.
That's their life. You do your thing. I'll do my thing.
I can't tell you not to go to church. I mean, I can't make a law against it. I wish I could at some point, because fuck off.
I hate that there are no prerequisites for anyone getting pregnant whenever they want to, but there's no laws against it.
God, I hate that there's no birth control.
I know. It drives me insane, especially watching how people grow up in small towns and like seeing these kids who have to like shit in buckets. And I'm just like, anybody can do this. They can just have a fucking kid anytime they want without
never having praised for it.
Ugh.
And watching people have a plethora of kids that they can't afford that live these difficult lives. Watching people like us, well, me and Anthony, Joe, you got lucky. Me and Anthony grow up in very religious families where we have a lot of mental health that we have to resolve ourselves because nobody was there to do it for us. And then we're watching all of these other kids get abused for no reason from their parents because their parents were not ready to have them. And but we're supposed to have kids. That's what we're made for. And I'm like,
no, you're not. That's not how. No.
I have a quick little Beardo feedback from Mom regarding that statement Jay just made. Little clarification from last week. She said, Dad was raised Catholic and was even an altar boy. I was raised Baptist and baptized with full immersion at the age of 14. We believed our children could be good people by setting a good example for them to follow, and we were right. Thanks, Mom.
I think you said that in last week's episode, but we should keep it in this week's episode because
it fits.
It does fit. I mean, you look at all of these kids who are being raised religious. I'm speculating at this point, pure speculation, but what do you bet those 3 girls who beat up Nex
go to church?
Go to church. I mean, just I would be willing to venture a guess based off of my own upbringing, based off of what we see here in Oklahoma on a daily basis.
I mean, let's think back to when we went to church. When I went to church, we were Christian, non-denominational. We were in a community church is what it was. So anybody could go there, and we were tiny. And I remember getting baptized, and I had no clue or no understanding really what I was doing. They were just telling me all this stuff, how important it is, how it needs to be done, and how you have to be ready, but it's kind of pressured on you. And then as they're dunking you, they're saying all this stuff and telling you everything, and everyone's so excited. Still to this day, I'm just like, what did you tell me to do? Like, what is this for again? You're washing away my sins, so I get to start over. Awesome. Shouldn't I get to do that weekly if that's the case? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just filling you with chaotic thinking.
Yeah. There's so much of a catch-22 with that, and especially with modern parenting mentalities, and even like our parents' mentalities about how you are old enough to make certain decisions for yourself as long as those decisions align with their beliefs.
Oh, yeah. You're old enough to make decisions as long as we approve your decisions.
Exactly. And then if you do make the decision that I think is right, then suddenly you're wise beyond your years.
As long as you are fulfilling the extension of the person I think you should be.
Absolutely.
You're not being you. You're being who I'm making
who
you
I wanted
out
you to be the second you popped out of the womb, and I looked at you and I said, wow, here's all my expectations. They're all on top of you now.
Which is what this country has been ever since its inception.
And it just... I guess it just weirds me out. Like, is our generation the first to have these thoughts? Like, is it most generations before us? I know, but is it just more generations before us, or just like, nah, you're just going to have a kid and do whatever the fuck you feel?
I just like to think about the whole slogan of Donald Trump, which is Make America Great Again. The sad reality is America was never great.
It's never been great.
Like, on the path that we're going, it will never be great.
That's the question. When was it great? And I always refer back to, I'm like, it was post-World War II. That's when our economy, that is when everything completely skyrocketed. And everyone's like, that was such a great time. And I was like, okay. You built it around the image that they've created, but you're not thinking about civil rights issues. You're not thinking about women's rights issues. You are not thinking about anything beyond segregation. I saw people on TV doing great.
How about all the Japanese American citizens? I don't think they thought it was very great back then.
Exactly. They were too busy watching John Wayne and being like, this is the best country ever.
Because he was cisgendered, white, male.
With a bad walk.
So we're going to keep talking about this subject a little bit more, and then we're also going to talk about bullying because that's very important. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to have a very important message for you during that break, and we'll be right back.
The majority of LGBTQ youth who are enrolled in middle or high school will experience bullying. Nearly half of students who identify as transgender or non-binary can expect to experience bullying either in person or electronically, and those odds go up to 70% among those with Indigenous backgrounds. If you or someone you know is experiencing bullying in any form, or are considering suicide or self-harm, the Trevor Project can provide convenient and discreet counseling. You can find them at thetrevorproject.org/get-help or by phone at 866-488-7386 or even by text at 678-678. Every child deserves a chance to grow up as themselves. Well, to pick back up where we left off, talking about John Wayne, and I know I mentioned this before, the book Jesus and John Wayne, but that's a great subject matter for the turning point of American evangelicalism, because that dude did a fucking number on people. He adopted Christianity, and he didn't actually become Christian. He just said he was Christian and then said a whole bunch of shit that he aligned with, that people were like, yeah, that's what I want to be. I want to be a tough guy. I want to be real hard on people. I want to be a hard ass. I want to be a militant Christian.
Why do you think he did that, Anthony?
Because it's easier to... Oh, yeah, he talked about like trying to like... For as manly as he was also a draft dodger. He got out of being drafted because he was afraid it would hurt his acting career. He was afraid he'd be too old when he got back.
Yep.
He's not the only famous male figure to be a draft dodger, is he?
Oh, God, no. There's so many of them. Like Dolan Trump, a talking corn.
God.
Interesting.
It's so weird. So strange how the most admired people are... What's the word? Cowards?
Cowards.
Hypocritical?
I do want to talk about, because this episode is spurned by what happened to Nex, did you guys experience bullying whenever you grew up in your schools?
So, not to an aggressive level. It was more just verbal harassment here and there. I don't ever really let that stuff show if it bothered me, which it might have bothered me or it might not have. And so I think it kind of just wore them off of me, but I never had any aggressive issues. I mean, if anything, adults in the small town that I grew up said ruder stuff to me than kids.
Ooh, yep, that makes sense.
Which is weird. I'm just like, wow, so mature.
I mean, that sounds right. Adults are the worst. Yeah. They cause most of the problems.
Yeah, baffles me.
Well, I wasn't out in high school. I didn't come out until college. Now, I mean, anyone with a set of eyeballs and could put two and two together could tell I was a little flaming homosexual, but
exactly
I was not out in school, so I tended to stay in my lane. I had my band friends, and I've talked about this before, but it was this weird phenomenon where the band kids in high school where I went weren't picked on for being quote-unquote band geeks because all the popular kids in my high school were in band in middle school. They just quit when we got to high school. So they had their groups, we had our groups, and everyone kind of stayed in their own little clique. And I'm sure there were, incidents that I was unaware of at my school because it was a high school of 1,600. So, of course, I'm sure there were sustained, isolated incidents that I didn't know about. I did witness a couple of fights, but I didn't really have trouble through school. I just kind of did my own thing with my own group of friends. Now, I can talk about my dad a little bit later because he was a school teacher in my county that I grew up in for 29 years. I never attended the schools he taught at, but he was a teacher in our school system for nearly 30 years. He retired in 2006. And I just talked to him actually on the phone right before we started recording just to get a little bit of info from him. And he gave me a good quote that I could use, and he said, quote unquote, "What the fuck," was what he said after he had read that story. So thank you for that. And also he wanted to just basically put his input that he experienced his own breakup of fights as a school teacher. And he saw bullying happening at school, and he's seen targeting. And he told me that he wasn't surprised that it happened in a restroom. That's the most vulnerable place that a child can usually go. It's a place where administrators don't usually keep an eye on because it is a closed door. It is seen as a private space. And that's why a lot of them aren't monitored very well because they are a private area. And that's where I think a lot of this big stink over restrooms comes into play because I can't put all the blame on parents, but a lot of it, I think, is on parents because it's fear of the unknown. They think that there are predators going into the bathroom to hurt their children, and that's a lot of times that's the argument that I hear is they're afraid of their child being harassed in the bathroom. But, I mean, from everything that I've been reading on this particular case in particular, it was the opposite. It was the girls who were in there with their own restroom finding an outcast, targeting, cornering, and finding someone who wasn't like them, and then assaulting them.
Well, and that's the thing. If you're the most angry parent and you're like, I'm doing this to protect my child, your child absorbs that anger and pain, and they end up taking it out on other people, which is the actual kid that's getting bullied. Your child is never being bullied. Your child is the bully.
Yeah.
Then you get scenarios like this in a conservative state where we shove this shit under the rug, and then somehow it gets itself out there, and then you look bad because you held it away from everyone and you treated it completely different, and it starts to become more obvious. And then you look dumb, but you just have to repeat the same rhetoric, fake news. You're getting out of control. You're trying to twist things to make me look bad. And I'm like, no, nobody has to do that. You are good at doing it yourself.
Yeah. And that happens so much here because even these kids' parents who are, let's face it, they're people we went to high school with at this point, or at least middle school, high school, whatever with.
Mm-hmm. We'd seen them in districts.
Yeah, we know them. Their parents were the same way to some degree.
Yeah.
So they're taking that generational trauma and they're just pushing it forward. They're not breaking the cycle of their generational trauma. And they don't see a need to, because again, when you live in a cisgender white world and that's what you identify as, why would you need to? Why do you need to break the generational trauma? Because you don't really see it as trauma. You just see it as normal.
I also need to add just this little tiny note, but when someone says you're privileged, it does not mean only financial.
Oh my God.
Everyone's like, I grew up poor, and I'm like,
I had to work for everything I had. That's fucking
means nothing. Like, yes, there are privileged rich people. I get it. That's not the only person that's being described as privileged. I'm privileged as just a white male, and it took me years to recognize how privileged I was. And when the BLM riots were going on, I think I just sat on my couch and cried when I finally recognized how ignorant I was and how embarrassed I was that I'd gone 30 years that ignorant. And it was mortifying to me. And as I kind of tell people, ignorance is okay if you acknowledge it and try to change it.
You have to be able to self-reflect, and it is so difficult for people to accept that self-reflection and admitting you were wrong is not some sort of admission of being awful. Like, yeah, I fucking sucked. I said these things. Like, I can look back on things that I said back in even as early as like 2011, 2010.
Yeah.
And I see them and I'm like, what the fuck, man? But I've learned since then. I've adapted and I've like changed the way that I perceive life and the way that I present myself and the way that I perceive my world since then. Because I had to get to the point where I was like, well, yeah, you were wrong, but your options are get better or be a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
Well, and Jay, it's interesting that you bring up that whole recognizing privilege as a white male, because I recognize it all the time too, especially in situations in this hellscape that we call Oklahoma. Whenever I'm in public and I'm in a situation where it may be harmful to me as a homosexual male, I lower my voice and I talk like this in a public setting, and I disguise myself as a straight male whenever I deem it fit for my own survival and well-being, because I know that I can hide behind that facade. I don't think it makes me a coward. I think it makes me vigilant and safe. But I recognize that I have that privilege to hide behind. And there are a lot of people in this area and this part of the country that don't have that luxury. And I think it's a huge shame that we even have to worry about that and that they have to worry about that every single day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and even you think of small scenarios like I can walk down the street and no female's gonna like grab her purse a little bit tighter when I walk by. Somebody else, well,
she's like, "Oh my God, this is Prada. He's gonna steal it because he loves Prada. Like, because he's so gay."
Do you have anything like? Do you have any certs in there? I mean, I know it's a small scenario, but when you think of it, you're just like, oh my God, like that just doesn't happen to me like it would of someone of a different race. And it's a little bit heartbreaking to think, what's it like in that position? I'll never experience that. And I have to be so much more aware.
Well, I think when you get to the point where you can start identifying the tiny things that you do, the little microaggressions that you commit against other people based off of their appearances, and accepting that you're doing those things, right? Like not seeing them as normal, but seeing them as something that's been generationally put into your head. Like, oh, do I take a wide berth if I'm, walking by a black person? Do I take, if I see somebody who's homeless, do I like treat them in a way that like, you know what I mean? Where you're taking different actions towards different people. And I get it. Your brain is designed to do that. It's designed to take the things that you've been taught were threats all your life and treat them as threats. Even though they probably aren't.
I mean, but it's kind of like, as a kid, you have to acknowledge I was scared of the razor whenever I was getting a shave on my head, and then I realized it wasn't dangerous. You have to continuously train yourself that something you may think is dangerous may not be dangerous. There are things that are dangerous. Those can be obvious, but
then that's the thing. Like,
have some humility.
That's where we circle back around to bullying and how parents are teaching their kids that the LGBTQ community are dangerous. Not necessarily to them like we're going to break out a knife and shank them, but really in like this moral fabric sense. And that energy that they have, they give it to their kids. And whether you realize it or not, like you're sending that to your children. No matter what you think they see, what you think you're teaching them, you're not teaching your kids through active lessons by telling them something directly. You're teaching them things by what you do on a day-to-day basis. They see that, they observe it, they mimic it. That's how kids learn.
You are grooming them to be how you think they should be, and now you're using that word negatively towards the LGBTQ community because you don't understand what the fuck's going on, and so you're like, you're grooming my kids because you don't understand what they're saying.
That is
most people are actually they're just trying to tell you to not be an asshole to people that aren't like you, and apparently that's grooming now. It's grooming if you want your children to be respectful.
Well, and that's the other part of what these kids are learning from, and it's being given to them by their parents, and that's these right here. These little rectangles that contain the entire knowledge of the entire world. These are the most dangerous things that anyone can own, especially a child. But therein lies the problem. It's popularity. If your kid doesn't have a cell phone at school, they're just going to be singled out by the kids that do have them, because there's always going to be that parent that starts the whole thing, that gives their kid a phone too young, too early, doesn't put any restrictions on it because they don't know how to, because they never learn, because they're not allowed to learn, because learning is bad. They have to be comfortable the whole entire time. Let's give our kid the cell phone. They're going to be great. They're going to be so responsible. No, they're not. They're going to find the most disgusting things they can find, which... that's a dangerous place. The internet, you can find a wealth of knowledge. You can find the answers to anything you want. You can also find some very horrible, shocking, awful things that no child should ever see. And all they have to do is click on a button that says, yes, I am 18. And that's the only rule that they have to bypass. The internet and all the social media is a huge, huge problem, and there's no way to stop it because it is growing so blindingly fast that we can't even make laws and rules to counter it because it is growing so quickly that we have lost all control of it, honestly.
Well, and because the old people who make laws don't even understand how it works, so...
No, they don't.
Exactly. And on top of that, and I know, Jay, you worked for telecom before... but largely, when parents come in and you have to explain to them that their kid did something on their phone that was like adult related,
oh my God,
they don't believe you because they couldn't fathom that their tiny little angel would ever do anything like that. And it does blow my mind because I feel like that is a generational issue, because if we had cell phones when we were that age and we had to go to the store and explain why, like, there's a $9.99 charge on my phone for, I don't know, fucking, dicksgalore.com.
Yeah.
My parents would have immediately been like, oh, yeah, this little asshole did that.
Oh, yeah. I would have not had a phone. They would have taken it away. I'd have been grounded for a month.
Yeah.
So therein lies the problem these days is I think there is a disconnect between learning face-to-face and learning from behind the screen, which, of course, was exacerbated during COVID when there was distance learning. That's neither here nor there. But, so here's a scenario that I think happens a lot. Little Johnny goes to preschool and tells little Susie, I don't like you, I think you're ugly. And then little Susie has a visceral reaction. Johnny sees that and says, oh my gosh, that's bad. I shouldn't say those things to people. learns the lesson, becomes a better human because of it. Then you have 13-year-old, Johnny's older brother. He's hiding behind his cell phone screen on TikTok. He sees something on TikTok he doesn't really like very much because he never learned about it and doesn't understand it, and he's hiding behind fear. He says, "I don't like you. You should kill yourself." He doesn't see the reaction that that person is seeing when they read that comment. So he's not learning that that's a bad thing to say. So that's not stopping him from going on to the next person and saying the same thing. So there's no consequence, there's no learning, and there's no face-to-face interaction between the two humans. And they continue to hide behind the screen and say whatever they want because they can.
I think there's some truth to that, but I also think that there is something to be said for societal expectations based off of where you live. So let's say somebody makes fun of you for being gay in a very progressive school where everyone thinks that being gay is okay. At that point, most people are going to have a very negative reaction towards what that person who said something that was anti-gay did. So they say, "Oh, we don't like you because you did this." That person is going to say, "Oh my gosh, I said something that people don't like. I should try to adjust." Now let's say that same person says the same anti-gay thing in, I don't know, the town where I grew up, Glencoe, Oklahoma, where there's a population of 600 and there's 5 churches and no stoplights. That person's probably going to get some positive reinforcement. They're going to be like, "Wow, look at that. Everybody likes that I said this bad thing to this person. I'm going to keep doing that because I feel good about myself because other people have made me feel good about myself."
Right. And that's a more specific example of what I was saying. But yes, you're right.
Yeah, and I just mean it just varies. It depends on where you're at.
Which all of this brings it to a psychological aspect. And I'm thinking more of in-person bullying. But if you bully someone, they react at all to it. They get mad. It's a power move. You now feel power that you had the control to adjust somebody else's mood based off of your actions. And the more and more you do it, the more power you gain. And people start to support you and people start to huddle behind you because that is how society works. Yep. They follow the person that exerts more power they feel, which is exactly how Trump has gotten so far. Yeah. He exerts more energy in his power play of shit talking on people, and that's it. That's all it is. It's bullshit talking.
Literally, it is just all fucking ridiculous too. Like I listened to some interview he did that was almost an hour long, and I don't know how I did a full hour of this, but I did. In the first 10 minutes, everything felt sort of normal, and then after about the 10-minute mark, things got fucking insane all of a sudden. And I was like, wow, okay, people hear this and they are selectively thinking, I like the first 10 minutes of what he said. Everything else is good.
I can't even fathom listening to that and being like, wow. I feel like that person is intelligent and can make very good decisions. Because I'm like,
the lack of ability to take responsibility for anything that really got me. Where I was like, whoa, this guy, it's
always Joe Biden's fault.
Everything is everybody else's fault. Everything is everybody else's fault. And I'm like, that's who you want in a position of ultimate authority over the country? But anyways.
I mean, stop and think. Would you hire this person? Obviously not.
Clearly not. But there are some people.
Well, it's also another symptom of social media. You have, the Instagram, the Facebook statuses, the TikTok videos, scroll. Everyone's ability to hold their attention on something has withered away into almost nothing. So they listen to a quick blurb of Donald Trump saying something inspirational, and they latch on to that one little thing. They don't stick around to listen to everything else, which is when they should be, because reading comprehension in this country has been going downhill. And look at all the education in the country. We're not exactly getting a lot better.
Mm-mm.
No. And I mean that ignorance breeds contempt. And that's just factual. I mean, that's how we end up where we're at now. That's how we end up with this episode of this podcast. Jay, I know this last week we've asked for some support and love, some information about how people grew up queer or gay in their own communities. Do we have any of those voicemails at this time?
We actually do. We have a few that we can play right now if you want.
Yeah, let's do that before we close out this episode.
So, Beardos, I know this episode was a little heavy, but I think it had to be. We can't be sunshine and rainbows all the time, but we wanted to bring this to the forefront because even though we've been reading about it nonstop, almost, it feels like, this may be the first you're hearing of it, which is, one, a shame, but also we're hopeful that a lot of you reading it can share it with someone else, can learn something from it, can even pass it along to a friend, and maybe even if we just reach one more person with this, that's just one more person who can know about this story and what we've been experiencing in Oklahoma, because I'm not very happy about it. And I just hope that maybe we can get a little bit better from this terrible, terrible tragedy, and hopefully we can get a little better and the future can be a little bit brighter.
And no one's life should ever be a stepping stone for society to get better. If we can't save one person, then is there any real point? You know? But we're here, we're in the situation, we're on the other side of it, we can't go back, we cannot change the past. All we can do is work together for a better future. So I encourage you all to take whatever you can take from this episode, take whatever you can take from Nex's story, and to spread more good into the world, to try to do what you can in your own scope of influence to help educate others and to improve everyone else's lives to the extent that you can, because that's all we can do as individuals in this society.
And we're not sorry at all for this episode being so heavy.
God, no.
We have an obligation to support our community as much as we can, and moments like these, while we didn't personally know Nex, impact us in the community and outside of the community extremely hard. And with society pushing back so hard on us lately, we have to push forward harder. And so absorbing these situations and using them to make us stronger is what we have to do. It's just, we have to do this. It's a survival anymore. So please, 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 don't be afraid to push boundaries. I think it would be good for all of us.
And if you didn't make this episode, feel free to call in if you'd like again. Leave us even more words, and we may feature it later on next week. So, from the three of us very hopeful Beardos, we want you to make sure to
love yourself, and please love each other.
Hey, Beardos. It's your favorite listener who never calls, for whatever reason, probably because I just don't like talking on the phone. But I figured I'd stop by this week. I know this week's going to be a little bit more heavy on the topic, and I wanted to kind of give my 2 cents. First of all, we all know what happened this last week. Unfortunately, a young child of the LGBTQ community lost their life. Pure accident? I think not. We have such radical ideas in this state. What's up with this Oklahoma standard? Truly, is this our standard? A level of you have to be a straight, white, Republican, Christian man to have rights? Is that the Oklahoma standard that we all love to tout? Is that truly what the standard is? I don't think so. Honestly, I think the Oklahoma standard is a crock. This is what it's led us to. Radicals controlling our schools, radicals controlling our states. And unfortunately, we live in a state that thinks the LGBTQ community has no rights. Literally, you have no protections. They want to take everything away from you. New legislation was filed today in committee to literally put sex ed in schools that would out LGBTQ community children. Like, what is that? Why are you so infatuated with the life of people of the community? I don't understand that. You think about what goes on in the bedroom of gay men and women more than gay men and women think about what goes on in their bedroom. Like, what the hell? Like, why are you so infatuated with it? You always have somebody to pick on. Unfortunately, it's the LGBTQ community right now, and it has just created this radical idea that they are the worst people on the planet. You can attack them, you can beat them, you can do whatever you want, and you'll get away with it. Yeah, you may face a few charges, but beating someone of the LGBTQ community up in this state, it's not a hate crime. They're not real citizens, they're not real people. Unfortunately, again, if you're not a straight white Republican man and a Christian, you don't really have any rights in the state. They'll do anything they can to take them away from you. I'll get off my soapbox, but again, with the hard-hitting topic that I know you guys are going to hit this week, I figured I'd just kind of give my 2 cents. Frankly, what's happening is absolute bullshit. Yes, we don't know the results of the investigation. We don't know what happened in that bathroom or why it happened, but it just seems all too convenient when you have the head of the education, the State Board of Education, just attacking the LGBTQ community every single day. He hires the libs of TikTok creator to literally go after people. That same school had a bomb threat because of that person, and yet they hired him. And now a child is dead because of it. I hope Ryan Walters is happy. Frankly, he doesn't even deserve to have his name said. He's a vile human being. He's a bigot. He's full of hate, and he's disgusting. To the family, I am so sorry that you're going through this. I can't imagine what they're going through. Should I offer my thoughts and prayers? That's the Oklahoma standard, right? Thoughts and prayers, that'll solve everything. Give me a break. Anyway, Beardos, can't wait to hear this week's episode next week on Sunday. Actually, Monday, that's when I listen to your episodes. Just to kind of see, your guys' thoughts on this whole situation. So, Beardos, sorry for the long message. I'll get off my soapbox. Just kind of angry today. And I just kind of wanted to give my 2 cents. Love the show. Keep it up, guys. And I will talk to you guys later.
Hello, this is Tim in Bartlesville, and I'm a founding board member of Oklahomans for Equality Bartlesville. We've been fighting the good fight for almost a decade here and will continue to. In the shadow of the most recent violence against the LGBT community, I wanted to tell you all that you are seen, heard, and above all loved. So please, never doubt, there are many others that will stand with you, and when you aren't strong enough, will stand for you. Although we live in a place of darkness and bigotry, we will overcome. We are always, always stronger together, and the future is unwritten. So let's write a better future together. I love you all and won't stop fighting until we win. Thank you.
Hey guys, this is Anthony.
This is George.
There are no words that can express the depth of sorrow we feel for the loss to our community. Nex's beautiful life and memory will forever remain in our hearts. George and I are sending our deepest condolences and prayers to Nex's family, friends, as well as to the LGBTQIA+ community in Oklahoma. Thank you guys for doing this wonderful show. We love you all. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Please consider donating to Nex's GoFundMe page. You'll find the link in our show notes. Please note, Nex's mother, Sue, has added an update that respects Nex's chosen identity. Always remember to love yourselves because we already love you.